Our journey, which follows the border between Wyoming and Montana, begins in amongst the mountains of Yellowstone Park's Soda Butte Valley and the landmark summit of Pilot Peak. From the dramatic glaciers of the Absaroka Range, we turn to make our way to Beartooth Pass and the road that's been described as the most beautiful drive in America. Further south is one of the most picturesque stretches of the Clarks Fork River, with white water coursing through its canyon walls. We turn once more at the Wapiti Valley, famous for its guest ranches and horseback riding. The only city we'll be visiting on this route is Cody, named after the legendary pioneer, best known as Buffalo Bill. Once across the arid wilderness of Bighorn Basin, we complete our journey at the canyon of the same name, with gorges as unique as they are spectacular. Named after a dormant geyser, Soda Butte Creek is one of the first sights for visitors of Yellowstone Park entering from Wyoming's northeast corner. In addition to a popular grazing spot for buffalo, Soda Butte Creek offers anglers an excellent spot to fly fish for cutthroat trout. The creek travels 32 kilometers toward its confluence with the Lamar River, sweeping through lush meadows and woods, all set against the backdrop of the mountains. Close to the border with Montana is Pilot Peak, one of the most famous landmarks of Yellowstone. Hidden from the valley among a complex of ridges, we rise 3,500 meters above sea level for a rare glimpse of the pointy summit. It's a sight normally reserved for adventurous mountain climbers who can view the Pilot from nearly every major surrounding peak. Rounding the mountain at Beartooth Range, we enter the state of Montana. It's here we find the most remote of all Yellowstone Park's entry points, Cook City Silver Gate. Considered quite daring for its time, this 1935 station is now a classic of its kind, as well as a National Historic Landmark. The Beartooth Mountains serve as our way into Treasure State, part of the national forest known as the Absaroka Beartooth Wilderness. Formed by the movement of glaciers over thousands of years, its rugged mountains reach up as high as 3,500 meters, a terrain comparable to parts of Alaska. The craggy peaks tower over around 300 small, pristine lakes and high ponds. At these altitudes, many of them are frozen over almost all year round. With some 25 glaciers across the range, the Beartooths have the largest unbroken landmass higher than 3,000 meters in mainland United States. Beyond these jagged rocks lies the highest point of the Beartooths and Montana, Granite Peak. At nearly 4,000 meters, the summit is noted by climbers as one of the hardest ascents in the United States, not least for its difficult access points and poor weather conditions. Thunderstorms, crumbling rocks, steep cliffs with deadly drop-offs all make for a treacherous adventure that can sometimes take 3 days. Amazingly, a 9-year-old boy made Montana headlines when he joined his father in scaling Granite Peak in 2012. Tucked away amongst the ridges of the Beartooth Range are these remote and serene lakes. It's said that the names they bear stem from those given to them by the Native American tribes that once dwelt in this region. No doubt, that evocative titles such as Lake Mystic and Froze to Death somehow reflected their experiences of this beautiful yet unforgiving place. The Absaroka Beartooth Wilderness is only one part of the vast Custer National Forest. And as we head southwest, there's a distinct change in the landscape. The jagged peaks and canyons give way to more rounded hills topped with ponderosa pine. Being just 100 kilometers from Montana's biggest city, Billings, makes this eastern district of the park a popular recreational hunting ground for deer, elk, and bighorn sheep. The forest was once a steady food supply for the Plains Indians of Montana, whose burial grounds and rock engravings abound in the area. It was also crossed by the first ever American expedition to the West Coast, famously led by Lewis and Clark in the early 19th century. Today, much of the Beartooth Ranger District is a strict conservation area, with forest authorities working closely to regulate logging and ranching. Turning south back towards Wyoming, our journey now follows Beartooth Pass, a road a CBS News correspondent referred to as the most beautiful drive in America. Opened in 1937, the Beartooth Scenic Byway is a 111-kilometer stretch of road from Cook City to Red Lodge, Montana, dipping into Wyoming along the way. Passengers wind through a wonderful series of steep zigzags and hairpin turns known locally as switchbacks. It takes an average of 3 hours to drive across what is the highest elevation highway in the Northern Rockies. The gusty bends and challenging gradients are a draw for experienced cyclists, and local companies operate guided tours through some of the most dramatic sections of the pass. But whatever the mode of travel, stopping off at the many viewing platforms is simply irresistible. Following the pass takes us through marked changes in the ecosystem, from the forested pine valleys to alpine tundra within just a few kilometers. At this small lay-by, we cross into the state of Wyoming. Here, the brutally cold climate makes trees and shrubs fairly scarce, but the vegetation that does grow has adapted in remarkable ways to be able to survive these harsh conditions. Similarly, only the hardiest of creatures can be found at this altitude, like the small pika, a distant relation to the rabbit. During the snow season, from October to May, the byway is officially closed. Travelers take to snowmobiles to enjoy Beartooth's transformation into a winter wonderland. But near the summit, the mountain tops are capped with snow all year round. With a choice of 13 national campgrounds, visitors are able to enjoy the ample recreation activities, from downhill skiing to hiking. Heading south takes us over this lush plateau with its alpine lakes and pools. And it's from here we catch our first glimpse of the Clark's Fork of the Yellowstone River. The distinctive shape of Sugarloaf Mountain towers above the Box, the sheer-walled canyon that earned the Clarks Fork River its wild and scenic status, the only such river in Wyoming with this accolade. The Box contains a treacherous stretch that lures skilled and daring kayakers to it. The run even involves physically carrying the boat through bear-inhabited woods that are closed in by the sheer cliffs. A leisure activity not for those with a nervous disposition. The canyon is the third deepest in the continental United States. Clarks Fork of Yellowstone River cuts through the 600-meter vertical cliffs of the Shoshone National Forest for 36 kilometers before its confluence with the Yellowstone near Billings. Further south within this vast wilderness is this lone, man-made structure, the Sunlight Creek Bridge. Constructed to provide direct access from Cody to the Beartooth Highway, this simple one-span concrete beam bridge links the route across a narrow canyon. Suspended over a 90-meter drop, the bridge is the highest overpass in Wyoming. Locals claim that it holds a world record relating its short length to the depth of gorge it spans. It's as much a destination as it is a bridge, offering spectators a dramatic view of the 365-meter wide canyon carved by the Clarks Fork between the Beartooth Plateau and the Absaroka Mountains. Completed in the 1980s, the name Sunlight Bridge is actually quite ironic, since the gorge is so narrow and deep that light only reaches the creek below for a fraction of the day. The bridge carries traffic along the Chief Joseph Scenic Byway. On its way south to Cody, it makes a circuitous course through Dead Indian Pass. The winding road eventually reaches a summit that serves as a memorial to the historic retreat of the Nez Perce Indians. In 1877, they fled from the advance of the US Army over these rugged high ridges. One legend tells that the defeated tribe left behind a wounded warrior who was later scalped and buried by scouts. While other local lore may question the accuracy of that legend, few can doubt the scenic beauty of this place. At the top, the reward is an overlook presenting an inspiring view of Sunlight Basin, so named by early 19th century prospectors because the only thing that can get into this valley most of the year is sunlight. In the far distance, it's a different story. Some 100 kilometers away from the arid desert climate of Bighorn Basin is the common sight of a thunderstorm. But the bright skies beyond the imposing cloud shows just how changeable the weather can be across this range. The Shoshone River weaves through the Wapiti Valley, named after the Native American word for elk, which populate the region. We follow the North Fork of the river to its origin, passing dramatic rock formations reminiscent of one of America's greatest painters of the Rocky Mountains, Thomas Moran. A strong tradition that thrives throughout these foothills of the Wapiti Valley is horseback riding. Visitors seeking an authentic cowboy experience stay at several dude ranches that dot the area. Guests can choose to take part in cattle drives or simply ride off for the day into the serene wilderness. It's a truly Western way of enjoying the sights of Wyoming. We enter Buffalo Bill State Park in the eastern section of the Absaroka Mountains. Here the altitude drops to 1,400 meters as we get ever closer to the city of Cody. This striking landscape was formed from volcanic activity some 50 million years ago. As a result of glaciers, water, and the relative softness of the rocks, the Absarokas appear very craggy. The constant forces of erosion cut deep U-shaped valleys with steep slopes and jagged outcrops. Some of these formations are extinct geyser cones that stand nearly 10 meters. At the heart of Buffalo Bill State Park is its reservoir of the same name. Buffalo Bill was the nickname of 19th century soldier and showman William Cody, who owned much of the land before it was flooded. Cody's vision was to irrigate the region and turn it into productive farmland. But the area was later acquired by the federal government, who implemented this massive reservoir project. Today, the water here supplies 4 irrigation districts comprising 38,000 hectares. The Buffalo Bill Dam, named in honor of the Wyoming pioneer, was a marvel of engineering for its time. When it was constructed in 1910, it was the highest concrete dam in the United States, standing almost 100 meters. In 1985, it was extended by a further 8 meters. The Shoshone proved to be a difficult river to dam, draining a mountainous area that falls 2,000 meters before reaching this canyon. Several major floods carried boulders and uprooted trees to the site, destroying early farming. 7 men were killed during the harsh working conditions, leading to the first strike in Wyoming history. A slight detour brings us to a fascinating geological feature: Heart Mountain. Its distinctive cap, at 2,500 meters, is made up of limestone and dolomite rocks that are nearly 350 million years old. Interestingly, they poke out of the base of the mountain, which is only a mere 55 million years old. How this geological oddity was formed goes back to around that time, when tremendous volcanic forces were shaping the Earth's landscape. But the actual story starts 40 kilometers away at Beartooth Plateau, where a 4-kilometer thick sheet of rock covering 1,300 square kilometers broke away, picking up speeds of up to 160 kilometers an hour. It took just 30 minutes for the rock to arrive and settle in this spot. By far, this is the largest ever known rock slide to have occurred on land. Over the 48 million years since the landslip, erosion has removed most of the sheet, exposing the rock that was once buried deep in the Earth's crust. The Crow Indians named the mass Heart Mountain, comparing it to the heart of a buffalo. The peak is also significant as it was a major landmark featured in the maps of the legendary explorers Lewis and Clark in the early 1800s. we continue our journey along a stretch of the Shoshone River that leads us to Cody. Whilst the city grew as a gateway town to Yellowstone National Park, its roots lie firmly in cowboy and western traditions. Yet the town does have some charming modern features, such as the Northwest College campus in the heart of Cody, which serves as an outreach school for the University of Wyoming. A far older landmark is the Park County Courthouse. It's been holding official proceedings ever since it was built in 1912. The Buffalo Bill Historical Center has 5 museums and a research library, all dedicated to preserving the spirit of the American West and the legacy of William Cody. The New York Times declared this complex as one of the nation's most remarkable museums. The town's only major motorway leads over Beck Lake and past the Veterans Memorial Park, where Cody proudly commemorates the dedicated citizens who fought for the American Armed Forces. The park includes several granite monuments that honor World War II, Vietnam, Korea, and the Gulf War veterans. The entrance has a dedication to a Marine who was the first American to lose his life in the Iraq War, also naming the street in his honor. Buffalo Bill erected the Irma Hotel in 1902. Named after his daughter, it quickly acquired fame for its caliber of guests. Today, visitors can stay in rooms occupied by such legends as Calamity Jane and arguably America's first ever celebrity, Annie Oakley. Visitors can also settle in for drinks at the Silver Saddle Saloon, which features a cherry wood bar given to Buffalo Bill by Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom. The last leg of our journey takes us over the semi-arid wilderness of Bighorn Basin. More than just a national park, it's also a rich source of fossil fuel, making it vital to the region's economy. The heart of Bighorn Canyon National Recreational Area is this reservoir. Long and narrow, Bighorn Lake stretches the full length of the canyon, straddling the Wyoming-Montana border. Conservation has made this place a premier fishing spot, though it hasn't been without its controversies. Water allocation between the 2 neighboring states has been an issue, as well as the reservoir's effect on the Bighorn River. The American Congress officially established this territory as a national recreation area in 1965, when the construction of the Yellowtail Dam harnessed the flow of Bighorn River. And it's here that we finish our journey, back in the state of Montana. Bighorn Lake snakes through these immense canyon walls for almost 115 kilometers. The recreation area offers visitors a tranquil setting to explore nature, wildlife, and even the prehistoric Bad Pass Trail that flanks the western side. One of the highlights is Devil's Canyon Overlook, where guests can view the confluence of 2 canyons which tower 300 meters above the waters. Once a flat surface, forces have carved the massive walls of this gorge, presenting some of Mother Nature's most spectacular work, and a magnificent place to end this journey.